Location at 503 West Garden of the Gods Road. Book your stay at hyattplace.com.
Are you tired of the same old boring travel shows?
Then tune into the Unscaled Travel Show presented by Diamondback Land Surveying each Saturday at 2 p.m. on KSHP. I'm Jeremy Long, the Full Metal Traveler, and along with my wife Amy, we'll take you to places you've never heard of and introduce you to destinations you've never seen.
If you're ready for adventure out on the open road, check us out on the Unscaled Travel Show presented by Diamondback Land Surveying each Saturday at 2 p.m. on KSHP or find us online at fullmetaltraveler.com.
Unscaled with Jeremy Long. Saturday afternoons at 2 on KSHP North Las Vegas. AM and FM. 829-6HP North Las Vegas. And KSHP.com.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program's participants and do not necessarily reflect those of station staff, management, and advertisers.
It's time for the most interactive radio program in Las Vegas today. It's time for Pushing the Limits with Brian Shapiro. Brian will talk sports, politics, entertainment, and anything that matters to you. Feel free to call Brian at 702-221-7283.
You want answers? I want the truth!
Now, Pushing the Limits, here's Brian Shapiro.
Hey everybody, what's going on? Happy Monday. It is Pushing the Limits. Glad to be with you on this very chilly, cold day in Las Vegas and windy out there. But I hope everybody had a fantastic weekend. We'll be getting to that. Plenty to get to, plenty to talk about, and the positives and negatives of the F1 over the weekend. And, you know, looking at video of pedestrians getting screamed at by security guards for taking some pictures of the races. We're going to talk a little bit about that and some more with Las Vegas's very own Doug Roberts, who was covering the F1 event. He'll be joining us at the bottom of the hour. We got Scott Gulbrenson joining us in hour number 2, as we're going to talk about the Raiders' loss to the Miami Dolphins. A lot of positive news to talk about when it comes to UNLV football again. They have a chance to win the conference. Right now, they're number 1 in the conference. Big win this weekend over Air Force, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. Chris Winn is going to be joining us in studio. So we got a lot to get to today. We got a lot to talk about. Why is Kyle Rittenhouse trending on social media? Well, I'll tell you why. Because he's now peddling a new book, trying to make money off of his stupidity. Kyle Rittenhouse on Twitter said, 2 years ago today, accused of unjust charges, I heard not guilty 5 times from a jury of my peers who heard the facts. My case split the nation into opposing sides, fueled by emotions, politics, and misconceptions driven by media and political figures. Today, I want you to learn the truth and know the real and honest version of my story without filters or any agenda. My story of survival, resilience, and justice is now available to pre-order. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the opposite of resilience and survival. He's an idiot. Kyle Rittenhouse illegally obtained an AR-15 gun at the age of 17. He lied. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But how do we know that he lied? Well, we know days before the shootings took place, he was dreaming about shooting people that were just looting coming out of stores. And we have the audio to prove it because here it is.
Bro, I wish I had my AR. I'd start shooting rounds at them.
Bro, I wish I had my effing AR-15 because I would shoot my rounds at them. That's Kyle Rittenhouse talking, parked outside of a convenience store where people were looting. Is that a normal response from people? You don't have to like looters. I don't. But my first response if somebody's stealing some goods out of a store is, I wish I had an AR-15 so I can shoot them. That's not normal. But a judge in the case didn't allow that to be permissible, which is absurd because it speaks to the mind frame that Kyle Rittenhouse was in when he committed what some would call murder and others would say self-defense. But there are people on the right, so many of them today, that look at Kyle Rittenhouse as some sort of hero. One of them was and still is Donald Trump.
That was prosecutorial misconduct. He should not have had to suffer through a trial for that. He was going to be dead. If he didn't pull that trigger, Kyle would have been dead.
Prosecutorial misconduct. Boy, sounds like the same words that Donald Trump uses when he's in the courtroom today, doesn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Oh, but he wasn't the only one that defended and praised and invited Kyle Rittenhouse to Mar-a-Lago. No, Tucker Carlson, the white supremacist sympathizer, did the exact same thing.
Kyle Rittenhouse struck us as bright, decent, sincere, dutiful, and hardworking. Exactly the kind of person you'd want many more of in your country.
Bright and decent? When I was 17 years old, I didn't dream about shooting people. When I was 17 years old, I didn't try to get my hands on an illegal gun. When I was 17 years old and there was maybe something dangerous going on in my community, maybe it was a dangerous protest, whatever, not even in my community, by the way, because again, Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't from that community. He didn't live in that community. That's another lie. I didn't dream about going to very volatile, angry protest and walking around with an assault weapon like the fake tough guy that he is. That's not bright. That's not smart. But to people on the far right, it is. Why? Because it was a Black Lives Matter protest. I'll let you decide what that means. And again, there were others out there like the Matt Gaetzes and the Lauren Boeberts of the world that praised Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse would probably make a pretty good congressional intern.
Madison Cawthorn, he said that he would arm wrestle me for this Kyle Rittenhouse internship. But Madison Cawthorn has some pretty big guns. And so I would like to challenge him to a sprint instead.
I mean, it's just utterly disgusting. And it sounds to me like Lauren Boebert might have fantasized about taking Kyle Rittenhouse to a movie theater and performing a sexual act on him. That's what it sounds like to me, and she probably still feels this way. Ladies and gentlemen, why is it that so many people on the far right look to Kyle Rittenhouse and call him a hero? Let me be very, very clear. Heroes are our brave men and women in uniform that risk their lives every day to protect us and our freedoms. Heroes are the brave firefighters that go into fires and risk their own lives to save others every single day. And the good police officers out there in blue, those are the heroes. Good Samaritans that help people, that perform CPR on people suffering a medical episode. Those are the real heroes in this country. The opposite of a hero is a stupid 17-year-old idiot vigilante who gets his hands on an illegal gun, doesn't even live in the community, doesn't own any businesses, family doesn't own any businesses in the community, but shows up in his artillery and his AR-15 acting like the tough guy that he is. And there's nothing tough about shooting somebody who's unarmed. But again, many people on the right look to Kyle Rittenhouse as some sort of hero. He's the opposite. He's a stupid 17-year-old vigilante, at least back then he was, and I would imagine he probably still is now. And he's also seen in pictures using the white power sign with a bunch of Proud Boy members at a bar during the trial. You want to call this stupid kid a hero? This book is not going to sell. You know why it's not going to sell? Because most people that want to buy this book can't read. That's why. Bunch of stupid idiots in this country that look to this kid as some sort of hero. It's disgusting. Was it self-defense? A jury decided that it was. You had a judge that wouldn't allow certain things as permissible in the courtroom, like the audio that I played of Kyle Rittenhouse days before, clearly thinking in his head and saying out loud that he wanted to shoot people because they were looting. Is that the way we should be as a country? If somebody steals a beer or some bubble gum or whatever, that we should just be judge, jury, and executioner? Is that what Republicans want in this country? Do we remember the McCloskeys? I sure as heck do. Mark and Patricia McCloskey. Do you remember them? There were some Black Lives Matter protesters that were not on their private property that broke into a private road, but not on their private property. They were just on the street in front of their house. Nobody was attempting to go onto their private property or break into their home. So what did the McCloskeys decide to do? They decided to go in the front steps of their home and point guns at Black Lives Matter protesters. And they pleaded guilty to misdemeanors, by the way, for the incident. And those images quickly went viral. Governor Mike Parson, of course, pardoned them. And McCloskey ran as a Republican. and they spoke at the Republican National Convention. Because to most Republicans today, in my eyes, when they look at a white couple going out in their front lawn and pointing guns at a bunch of black people, apparently the Republican Party looks at them as some sort of hero or heroes. Apparently in the Republican Party today, if you're a stupid 17-year-old kid and you act as a vigilante and get your gun illegally at the age of 17 with your AR-15 and show up to a community where you weren't born and show up to a community where you don't own any businesses, your family doesn't own any businesses, and you show up in your camouflage artillery with your AR-15 and people die, somehow you're looked at as some sort of hero. And if you don't believe me, go on social media today. The right-wing pundits and those people on the far right are praising Kyle Rittenhouse and calling him a man of courage and dignity and decency. The Tucker Carlsons of the world, the Matt Gaetz, the Lauren Boeberts, the Donald Trumps, the MAGA Republicans out there. To them, he's some sort of hero. But to, I think, normal, everyday people, he's a stupid kid who probably belongs in jail, a vigilante, and the opposite of what we should teach our children to do and the way they should act. That's not the only big story that took place over the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. Liz Cheney decided to tweet out a video of the January 6th insurrection and some of the violence that took place. She has been attacked from the right from the beginning for being on this commission and trying to hold people accountable for that very embarrassing and dangerous day that took place on January 6th. Now, I'm going to play you just a little tidbit of the 30-second video that she put out on social media.
Multiple capital injuries. Multiple capital injuries.
You see video of officers being attacked with their own batons, officers and Capitol Police being beaten. We know that over 140 people were injured that day. People died that day. Officers died days, weeks, months later. And the several officers that committed suicide, their family members said they were never the same after January 6th and they suffered from tremendous depression. I'm going to believe them over some right-wing idiots out there that seem to think that January 6th was a tourist visit. One of those idiots is Mike Lee, the guy who wants to take your Medicare and Social Security away, by the way. So she responded to Liz Cheney on social media. And again, Mike Lee is one of those despicable right-wing MAGA Republicans with no sense of any type of moral compass at all. Sadly, many Republicans in office today share what Mike Lee shares in that. Mike Lee went on social media, tweeted out, "Liz, we've seen footage like that 1,000,000 times. You made sure we saw that and nothing else. It's the other stuff, what you deliberately hid from us, that we find so upsetting. Nice try. P.S. How many of these guys are feds? As if you'd ever tell us." Now, everything that Mike Lee said there is a lie, and it's not true. Liz Cheney didn't try to hide any footage. Not true. And we learned that because Tucker Carlson exposed or allegedly exposed the commission for putting out all this video, never seen before footage, and all we saw were a few people being escorted into certain areas of the chambers. And the reason why they did that, as we learned based on their testimony, is because they wanted to de-escalate. The same reason why a few of those D.C. officers allowed certain people in certain areas, because it was 100-1. When you have 100 people, some of them with weapons, and you have one officer with a gun, that officer has two choices. Either you're going to take out your gun and you're going to start shooting people, which I would advise they don't do, or you allow them in the building as a sense of de-escalation so more people won't get hurt or killed. That was the choice of some of those Capitol Police officers. And by the way, I don't blame them for doing that. But if you listen to right-wing idiots out there, they will make the claim, oh, why did all these officers let all these insurrectionists in then? They must have been in on it. No, they weren't. Unless you're a dumbbell, you would believe something like that. That is a conspiracy theory, and Mike Lee is a liar. That's not why a few officers behaved the way they did. And if it's 100-1, I would have done the same thing, even if I had a gun on me, because all it takes is one other person with a gun, and then you're going to have a shootout, and a lot of people are going to die. So Liz Cheney did respond in only the funny way that Liz Cheney could. She said, hey, Mike Lee, heads up. A nutball conspiracy theorist appears to be posting from your account. So it's funny, but it's also true in a sense that Mike Lee is a conspiracy theorist and Mike Lee is a nut job. So why are we living in times right now where there are so many on the far right that refuse to accept truth? They choose fiction over fact. Why are we living in a time right now where they look at people like Kyle Rittenhouse and the McCloskeys as heroes? We remember who Donald Trump honored at his State of the Union speech? The cancer himself, Rush Limbaugh. He honored Rush Limbaugh. He didn't honor any brave men or women in uniform that maybe lost a limb, because we know how Donald Trump feels about those people. He honored Rush Limbaugh, a man who spewed hatred, racism, and bigotry on his radio show every single day of his career. These are the types of people that Republicans look up to as some sort of hero. These are the people that Republicans put up on a pedestal. These are the heroes of the Republican Party. These are some of the faces of the Republican Party. True cowards, and in my personal opinion, criminals, because Donald Trump is going to be one on his 91 felony counts, and Donald Trump is the leader of the party. Republicans praise, lift up, and look up to those who are bigots, those who are criminals, those who are vigilantes, and those who point their guns at a bunch of black people that are not on their public property or private property. That's who these Republicans look up to. And if you don't believe me, just look at the Republican National Convention. When the McCloskeys spoke, you become a star within the Republican Party if you go out in front of your house and point a gun at a bunch of black people. Am I wrong? I'll open up the phone lines if you want to be a part of the conversation. 702-221-7283. And again, that number, if you want to be a part of the conversation, 702-221-SAVE. 702-221-7283 is the number to call. My question is, why is it that so many people on the far right look up to bad people as heroes? Yeah, I think Kyle Rittenhouse is a bad, stupid kid. Do I think he deserves to go to jail for 30 years? Probably not. But make no mistake about it, Kyle Rittenhouse should have never been there. He should have never had an AR-15. And it's amazing to me that in this day and age that there are still so many politicians and there are still so many people out there that look up to these vigilantes and bad people as heroes. I don't understand it now, and I will never understand it, only to say that if you behave in this manner and you decide to attack certain people that don't look like you, could be brown people, could be those in the LGBT community, who knows? That Republicans see that as a plus, not a minus. They see it as a good thing, not a bad thing. And in some cases, will call you a hero for acting in that way. I find it abhorrent. I find it disgusting. And I try to talk to people about these topics a lot, and I try to understand, and I try to figure it out, and I try to say to myself, is this what we want this country to look like? Is this what we should do? Is this what you want? Is this the kind of country, this is what you want your kids to grow up into? This kind of country? Where you want to look at somebody as a hero, as somebody, a 17-year-old that has an illegal gun, going even into a community where he wasn't from, didn't live, acting as a vigilante. And it's interesting because they all, dress as G.I. Joe, right? They all are tough guys. They all dress as G.I. Joe. It's pretty simple. You don't have to be very tough to shoot somebody that's unarmed. There's nothing tough about that. And now he's making money off it the same way that, in a way, George Zimmerman made money off of that horrific situation, the killing of Trayvon Martin. George Zimmerman did autograph signings at gun stores. What kind of sick country are we living in? Where somebody who follows somebody when he's told not to by the 911 operator, acting as a police officer, Trayvon Martin was doing absolutely nothing wrong. Absolutely nothing wrong. He had just gone to a gas station and bought some Skittles and a candy bar. He was doing nothing wrong. But because George Zimmerman was a racist, and probably still is, I would imagine, and racially profiled Trayvon Martin, Zimmerman called the police. But that wasn't enough for George Zimmerman. He then followed him. He followed Trayvon Martin. And I would imagine Trayvon Martin was very scared. And then a physical altercation ensued, and then Zimmerman shot and killed Trayvon Martin. Some Republicans out there looked at George Zimmerman as a hero. Some Republicans out there got George Zimmerman's autograph. Some Republicans out there even were trying to figure out how they could get their hands in an auction, which was, the gun was put on auction, and Zimmerman made a lot of money off of that gun. How sickening are we as a country? If you don't think Kyle Rittenhouse did anything wrong that night, and you think his actions were totally fine, go ahead and think that. I disagree with you. But don't call him a hero or some sort of martyr. Don't do that, because it's so dangerous, and the rhetoric is so dangerous. Don't do that. Don't buy his book, for God's sakes. Can we all, as Americans, just try to agree that as a 17-year-old, you shouldn't be holding any weapons, and you shouldn't be going into a volatile situation like a Black Lives Matter protest that took place in Kenosha? Can we all agree that that is a very dangerous situation that you put yourselves in, and you shouldn't put yourselves in that situation, whether you're 17 or 87? The number to call if you want to be a part of the conversation is 702-221-7283. The number to call again is 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to John. John, are you there? Sir, do you have anything you'd like to talk about? Or? Okay, bottom down. Keep him on the line, though. Sir, is there anything of substance you'd like to add? Okay. Have a nice day, sir. Have a nice day, sir. Have a nice day. I guess shooting people is funny to this guy. I don't know. Maybe it's the Joker. Maybe it's the Joker that's calling up. Oh, did he hang up? Oh, darn it. Was that the Joker that just called in? Maybe that was Kyle Rittenhouse that called in. I don't know. That person who just called in, his name is John. I think that person is a perfect example of the kind of guy that's going to buy Kyle Rittenhouse's book. Probably can't read, but just for bragging rights, he'll go to a signing and get Kyle Rittenhouse's autograph. Maybe, I don't know. It's interesting because I've been trying to interview Kyle Rittenhouse for a long time now. The only interviews he will do are with right-wing, far-right Tucker Carlson types. He won't do an interview with anybody that'll give him any bit of pushback at all because he doesn't have the intellect, he doesn't have the intelligence to be able to defend himself. And we all know that those were crocodile tears. I do agree with LeBron James when he said those were crocodile tears when he was on the witness stand. I agree. Just go watch that video. He wasn't teary-eyed. That was an acting job. And sadly, it worked. And the problem we had is the first shooting that took place. Yeah, he was attacked. That was self-defense. But when you see somebody running down the street with an AR-15 and you hear that there was just a shooting and he just shot somebody, some people are going to try to stop the shooter. They didn't know exactly what was going on, and a couple of those people died. And it's very unfortunate. I wish it didn't happen. And here's the key, ladies and gentlemen. It wouldn't have happened if Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't there. It wouldn't have happened if a stupid 17-year-old didn't purchase an illegal gun or get an illegal gun and show up and become a vigilante. It wouldn't have happened if Kyle Rittenhouse wasn't there. And now as a society, we're supposed to reward him, make money off of a book? This is sickening. It's sick. And we live in a sick country, in a sick culture. You know, Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene nominated Kyle Rittenhouse when he was 18 years old to be given Congress's highest award. That's what these far-right Republicans do. They award people for horrible behavior. You could be pointing guns at a bunch of Black Lives Matter protesters, or you could be a 17-year-old with an illegal gun showing up at a very volatile, dangerous protest, and people die, and the Marjorie Taylor Greenes of the world are going to give them awards. It's sick. Donald Trump doesn't want to be seen with brave men and women in uniform that have lost limbs. He's called them losers. But Kyle Rittenhouse is the kind of guy that Donald Trump invites to Mar-a-Lago and treats like a king. This is the MAGA far-right Republicans today, ladies and gentlemen, and it's sick and it's sad. I got to share with you my Robert F. Kennedy Jr. story. I did meet him over the weekend, so I do want to talk about that. But coming up next, Doug Roberts is going to be joining us. LV News Production and Telecom. Covered the F1, and there were some positives and negatives. Why were pedestrians getting screamed at and intimidated on some of these public bridges on the Las Vegas Strip? We'll talk a little bit about that and much more with Doug Roberts. We'll take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're listening to Pushing the Limits right here on KSHP.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex. And tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Shopping is always easy with the Radio Shopping Show. Whether it's shopping during any one of our live shows right here on AM 1400 or listening live on the KSHP app, you can always call in at 702-221-7283 to pick up great deals with your favorite host. Or shop 24/7 at kshp.com. Go to kshp.com and select Shopper's Guide to browse hundreds of businesses featured on the show. Place your order online and we'll have it shipped right to your front door. With so many possibilities, it's hard not to shop.
All right, welcome back. It is Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. And as I mentioned, coming up in hour number 2, we got Chris Winn in studio. Talk some local sports, national stuff. What a great basketball game I saw yesterday, UW and San Diego State. Talk about that in hour number 2. But speaking of sports, yeah, we had the F1 in Vegas over the weekend, and there were positives, there were negatives. I know a lot of celebrities were in town, including George Clooney and Brad Pitt, who's filming an F1 movie himself, which is kind of cool. Everybody was in town to catch the F1. I was in town, but I did not catch it. The guy joining us right on the line did cover it. He's with LV News Production and Telecom, and his name is Doug Roberts, who joins us right now on the line. Doug, I do appreciate you being here. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon, Brian. Great to be with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining us, Doug. So I went on your Twitter, and the video that I saw yesterday that you posted that you wanted everybody to see, and I agree with you. I think everybody should see it. Basically what it is, right, is it's a video of a private company that hired a bunch of security guards to basically, what you stated, scream and intimidate pedestrians who stopped on these public sidewalks trying to get a glimpse of the race. What do you make of this video? Because it's certainly getting circulated, going all over social media. What do you make of this?
You know, Brian, this video has taken on a life of its own. It's getting almost as many views online as the Formula One coverage itself. Almost 10 million people have seen this video. And you're right. I mean, it's a really outrageous video. There's been a lot of inconveniences and a lot of problems that locals and even visitors and tourists have faced with Formula One. But this is really the first evidence that has really been posted and come to light of the treatment that people are facing, and just the not really just rudeness, but just outright just treating people horribly that have come down to see the Formula One, whether they bought a ticket or not. You know, obviously we saw what happened with the race being canceled or the practice being canceled, and the people that lost their money on those tickets. But even these people who are trying to take a glimpse at the race from these public sidewalks or these public pedestrian bridges are also being intimidated, being screamed at by these private security.
Let me ask you a question, Doug. So this is public property, right? This isn't owned by any of the casinos, because my understanding, if it's public property, you can't kick somebody out like that for taking pictures on a public. It's no different than any public sidewalk. Do I have that right?
You're absolutely right. And I've looked at all of the laws, all the statutes, from the state NRS code to the local Clark County municipal ordinances, and these are absolutely public property. They're public sidewalks, and they're not even considered crosswalks. They're public sidewalks, and there's a distinction between a sidewalk and a crosswalk. Then the Clark County Commission several years ago tried to change these pedestrian bridges on the Strip from being sidewalks to crosswalks because of the issue of the street vendors, going up there and obstructing the movement of pedestrians by selling things, which you can't do in a crosswalk, and you can certainly do it on a sidewalk.
Right.
But that ordinance didn't pass, and so these are still sidewalks. Anyone who's just stopping and standing there absolutely has a right to do that. There are some laws about obstructing the sidewalk, but they're very specific. They're very specific in that Clark County says 13.32.040, placing any boxes, barrels, crates, or other obstruction for displaying, offering for sale, or selling any goods, wares, or merchandise. That's very specific.
Right.
Someone just standing there on the sidewalk isn't violating any law at all.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So let's talk about accountability. First of all, let me start from square one here. Do we have any idea who actually hired this security group? Was it a casino? Well, who was it that hired these security guards?
I don't know of anything official, but I've seen this same company with this same logo all around the racetrack. So not specifically at any casino, at any entrance or exit, but all around the racetrack, at the various different turns, at the intersections. So my suspicion is it's Formula One.
And that's, we need to find out about that, because if it is Formula One, they need to be held to account for this. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the people that are breaking the law are the actual security guards. You getting in somebody's personal space, screaming at them, that's harassment. I mean, those people should be held to account. Has the actual security guard company made any statements at all or anything like that?
No, they've been very quiet. Obviously this video has gone viral, 10 million plus views. I posted it, many other people posted, so they're getting a lot of response. If you go to their Facebook page, if you go even their Google reviews, they're getting hammered with a lot of people leaving them one-star Google reviews and screenshotting this and putting it on their Facebook page. And as of right now, no response from them at all.
I mean, I got to be honest with you, Doug. If that was me and I wanted to take some pictures and I was on a date or whatever the case may be, and if somebody got in my face, I would have looked at them. I would have said, screw you. If you think I'm breaking the law, you go ahead and you call Metro Police. I'm staying here, and I'm going to start recording you. And if you put your hands on me, you're going to get a lawsuit, and you're the one that's going to go to jail. I mean, that's the way that I would have handled it, because they're not cops, right? They can't handcuff you. There's nothing they can do, right?
No, absolutely not. I mean, they've got no more arrest powers than me or you under a citizen's arrest. And, the ironic thing is, 3 or 4 security guards come around to surround this one person who's just standing there. They're causing more of a problem. They're the ones standing on the sidewalk more than he is.
Yeah. I mean, I guess some people would use the term rent-a-cop, and that's I don't mean to be disrespectful to the real law enforcement out there, but just really sad to see that sort of thing. Let's talk about the positives and negatives other than that. I mean, I know that the practice runs were called off because of I guess there was a pothole, right? There was some sort of pothole, and I know the weather wasn't great. Is that why those were canceled?
So the first practice, it was only a few minutes into the race. I think 7 minutes into the race. A lid from a water valve that wasn't secured properly came off and got stuck, presumably underneath one of the cars, and it did a lot of damage. I'm still not sure whether that car was able to race or not, but did a lot of damage to that car and canceled that day. They canceled that day entirely, and what they did was they went around to every water valve on the track, making sure that it was sealed, and then they actually resealed them, filled them up just to be double cautious, and then they resumed practice the next day.
Gotcha. Okay. So my understanding is that, and again, not to be negative, but people paid a lot of money to see those runs, and my understanding is none of those people are going to get their money back. In fact, Metro Police, I saw some videos circulating online that night, had to escort people off certain properties that wanted to just hang out. I mean, what do you make of that? Where, you couldn't see the practice runs, and then these people who spent a lot of money, upwards of $500 to $1,000 to watch, didn't get to watch anything, and they don't get their money back. I don't understand that.
It's terrible. It's really terrible. People paid for seats. People paid for balconies. People paid for bottle service and really expensive things at some of these venues. And it was disappointing, of course, when the accident happened and they canceled the practice. But it did resume. They just waited until like the next day. It was like 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
It took them a long time. And yeah, Metro, and some of these venues, they closed down and escorted the people away. Formula One's response was to give these people, only Nevada residents, I understand it, a merchandise credit of several $100s. So if you want to buy Formula One merchandise, you can turn your canceled ticket into basically a gift card for some merchandise.
That's absurd. I didn't know that. That's ridiculous. Doug, in most other sports, as you know, if it's canceled due to weather, you're either going to get a refund or you're going to get a ticket for another game. What they should have done, and you tell me whether you disagree or not, if they don't want to refund everybody, then give somebody a voucher to buy a ticket for next year. Would that be so hard?
I mean, that's standard in Las Vegas, right? We're a city of all these shows, city of entertainment. these things get canceled. Things happen, just like the Ed Sheeran concert at the Allegiant Stadium, where the stage wasn't safe or something like that. The people, they're disappointed, but they got either their money back or they got a voucher for the next concert. It's standard practice here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If you're just joining us, he is Doug Roberts, LV News Production and Telecom, covering F1. So obviously everything wasn't negative, right? I mean, it was kind of cool to see all the celebrities that flocked to the races. I thought it was kind of neat to see Brad Pitt out there. He's filming a new movie, as I'm sure you know, and he was just out there walking around. George Clooney. I mean, some of the biggest stars on the planet converged, which is not a surprise. What did you make of the actual race itself, Doug? What did you think of it?
Oh, it was great. I was actually on a balcony at Brewdog Bar, which is right there on the Strip. It's about a block away from turn number 12. So I was able to see firsthand. I think it was towards the beginning of the race. One of the race cars hit the sidewall of the track, and his tire came off, and he ended up spinning out. I mean, that was marvelous to see. It was terrible for that guy. I think he went to the hospital. But to see things like that up close, I mean, it's a spectacular sight to see those going at 200 miles an hour around a sharp curve like that.
Obviously, it's great for the economy, right, Doug? I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm not a race car fan, right? I'd rather go to a Raiders game, go to a basketball game. I'm not a race car fan. I went out to the NASCAR races a few times. But I'm a fan of giving people options, right? And I have no problem with having this race and giving people the option if they're a fan. It's great for the economy. My issue, from my perspective, is the construction the prior 6 months before, the hellish commutes. That's the part that I didn't like. And I keep hearing from all these F1 people, oh, it's going to be better next year. We're going to have improvements, blah, 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 blah. I mean, that's my biggest criticism. And I think that's the biggest criticism of a lot of locals out there, right?
Well, here's the question that remains unanswered. Are they going to repave the Strip every year? Obviously the Strip wasn't in bad shape, right? It wasn't a road that was falling apart. It didn't have potholes, yet they repaved it just for this race. Are they going to do that every year? If so, this is a really bad problem to have.
It's an inconvenience. And then, Doug, when you think about the A's, the new stadium that's going to be built on the Strip, you got the F1 now. More people are moving to Las Vegas than ever before. This is turning into L.A., and I always used to say, I love Las Vegas. Yeah, a lot of people converge on the Strip, but the traffic isn't too bad. It's not like L.A., but I'm telling you, man, it seems to me, Doug, this is turning into L.A. slowly but surely.
Well, one thing that I've always said, and I haven't lived in Las Vegas very long, but Las Vegas is a city of monopolies and duopolies. So when it comes to paving, obviously the state and the county, they don't do their own paving. They hire companies, contractors to do it, and there's two. And largely there's one company that gets all the contracts for all the paving. And so, there's not really an incentive there for them to do a better job or move quicker, that sort of thing, because it's almost a monopoly. For internet here, we've got Cox, they're over 90% market share. We've got three companies that own most of the properties on the Strip. It's a city of monopolies, and so there's not a lot of incentive in the city for doing a better job.
Yeah, no doubt. I will say this, though. There are definitely some people on the Strip that are very happy that F1 is here, including dealers at the Winn, apparently, in Las Vegas. They split $700,000 in tips on Saturday night, according to Las Vegas locally. That means each dealer went home with a minimum of $2,000, which is 5 to 6 times more than their $350 to $400 average. And we all know that, and that's the highest, by the way, in the Winn's 18-year history. And we all know that that's due to F1. So, not just dealers, but there's a lot of people in the service industry and a lot of people in Las Vegas, right, that are really happy that F1 is here because it just creates a lot of business and a lot of money for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And the culinary union used it kind of as a bargaining chip there to get what they wanted. And so, a lot of people did win that, were locals. As far as the casino dealers, I don't know how that system works. Maybe you can enlighten us a little bit about how does that work? How do dealers get tipped? How do they share? Is it like a restaurant? Tell us about that.
So, no, it's not like a restaurant because for the most part in a restaurant, your waiter or waitress is going to keep the tip. And sometimes they'll tip out a busboy or whatever the case may be. But in most casinos in Vegas, just about all of them, they split tips. So you got all the dealers on a specific shift. And in that shift, for example, in your 8-hour shift, at a craps table. If one customer tips $100,000, then every dealer that is working that shift is going to split that tip, if that makes sense. So they total all the totes for that shift, and then they split those tips. And that's what happened at the Winn. I would imagine this was probably maybe a 4 to midnight or a 6 to 2 a.m. So in most casinos, they split tips. I think if you're dealing poker, and there's a few other places that don't do that, but like the Winn, they split all their tips. So I'm not a big fan of that, because you could have one really bad dealer that's moody and isn't doing their job right, and they're going to make the same amount of money as a great dealer who makes $100,000 in tips. You know, that's what I don't like about the splitting of the tip system. But yeah, it's very different than a restaurant. For example, you know, if you're at a restaurant and you're sitting at a nice restaurant, and you tip well for your waiter or waitress, and then the next time you go, you have a terrible server, you're not going to tip them well. So bad waiters and waitresses don't get rewarded in this town, but bad dealers can. And I guess that's what I don't like, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a really, really interesting system. I know in some restaurants there is some tip sharing that goes on between the hostess and the busboy,
sure.
And you know, different people like that. I had no idea that was how it worked among dealers.
That's how it's done. And if there was any weekend where you had a lot of people with a lot of money, this was definitely the weekend. Hey, Doug, I'm sorry. Before I let you go, can you do me a favor? Can you give out that information? How can people follow you on social media and cover your stuff? How do people follow you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's twitter.com/Doug R. Roberts.
Good stuff, Doug, and I appreciate you tweeting that out, because if you didn't do it, I wouldn't have known about it, and it's important to let people know, to make sure that hopefully next year, if people are on bridges, they should be allowed to watch the race and take pictures. So I'm glad you did that, and I do appreciate you taking the time to come on, and hopefully you can join us again down the road, and I appreciate you, Doug. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Brian.
All right, appreciate it. That's Doug Roberts, everybody, from LV News Production and Telecom. I'm glad that he tweeted out that video clip of security guards harassing pedestrians that were just taking pictures of the race. That can't happen again. And that security guard company should be ashamed of themselves. I guess people will do anything for money these days. And I would, if it was F1 that did it, they need to own it, and they need to talk about it. And guess what? They need to make sure that that doesn't happen again. So, thanks to Doug Roberts for joining us and talking a little bit about that. There were a lot of positives and negatives to F1. I stayed away. Man, I saw a great college basketball game last night. When Chris Winn gets in here in 10 minutes, we're going to talk about that and get into the sports. But I promised everybody that I would share my story, my interaction with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. All right. So here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to start from square one here and try to share the entire story with you and be fair. So for the last month or two, I've been emailing Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s people. What does that mean? As with any guest that I get on the show, I email their handlers. I explain to them what we need, what time, and then they hopefully get back to me. And the Kennedy team was, and I was working with them, and they said eventually that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would come on the show. Great. So a few weeks ago, I found out that the presidential candidate, who's now an independent, which I'm not buying, was coming to Vegas. And he had an event. So I emailed them, and they said that they would do their best to make sure that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would make some time to come on the show. And at first, there was a possibility that he could come in studio, which would be great. We'd love to have him in studio. And then a day before, it was, we might not have time to do it in studio. His schedule's kind of tight. So let's just do it on the phone. Then, that morning, I found out that not only was he not coming on the show, but they gave me some invite and said, hey, if you want to come to the event, it's a $500 event. If you want to come to the event, you can meet Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I said, okay. This was Friday afternoon. I said, I'm angry because, I've been working to try to get him on the show. And it seems like he has, not seems like, he has 2 or 3 hours to meet with possible donors to his campaign. He definitely has time for that. But he doesn't have 10 or 15 minutes to go on a local radio show. So that's fine. So I show up to the event with, I guess, an open mind. Even though I've never been a Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fan, I think he's a conspiracy theorist, and I don't like him. But I show up with an open mind, and I believe it was at Sushi Roku. Great sushi there, by the way, at Caesars. And it was supposed to be at the Ahern. So I'm pissed off because I show up at the Ahern, and they tell me, yeah, they moved it. I didn't get any email. I didn't get any text message. So that's a screw up right there. And why would you do it in the middle of the Strip during F1. That's another horrible, horrendous decision in a small little sushi restaurant. So anyway, that's how it started. So I end up going to the Ahern, and then I go to Caesars. I get there on time. They do a background check, and I'm in the event. Not a lot of people in there, maybe 50 or 60 people. It wasn't a big turnout. And Danica Patrick hosted it. I know she was in town for F1. I don't know why she hosted this, but she sat there at a table with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and they started talking for about an hour. Danica Patrick spoke for about maybe 30 seconds, and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who has no problem talking, even though it's hard to hear him, to no fault of his own, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. started spouting off his conspiracy theories. And it didn't take him long to blame Ukraine for the war in the Ukraine. That's right. He said Ukraine, he basically blamed Ukraine for the war there. Nothing negative about Russia, nothing negative about Vladimir Putin, but he blamed Ukraine for not making a deal with Russia, when we know that it was Vladimir Putin that invaded the Ukraine and committed atrocities and genocide. But I didn't hear Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talk about that at all. He spread more conspiracy theories, not just about the Ukraine, but also spread conspiracy theories, of course, about the vaccinations. So at this point, I'm kind of rolling my eyes, right? It's hard to even listen to this guy in so many different ways. I don't have a lot of respect for him. Certainly a ton of respect for his late, great father, Robert F. Kennedy, and so sad and tragic what happened to him. He would have been our next president. And certainly I have so much respect for his uncle, the late John F. Kennedy. Both of them assassinated. It's tragic. But what the hell has Robert F. Kennedy Jr. done in his life? I mean, I don't know. I can't figure it out. But anyway, he speaks for about an hour. And then at the end of this, they agree that they have some time to take a few questions. At least that's what Danica Patrick said. So there's only like 3 or 4 of us that are raising our hand. He picks this lady in the front wearing a RFK Jr. 2024 shirt. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. You know, this lady bumbles and talks for 2 minutes praising this guy without even asking a question. How do we get more involved in your campaign? Oh, I love what you do, blah, 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 blah. Hey, dumbbell, this is a Q&A. It's not an opportunity for you to just spout your love for Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you dope. I mean, that's what I wanted to say to her. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, just shut up and stop rambling, and then we'll go on, move on to somebody else. After she speaks for 2 minutes and there was no question, I'm the only person that raises my hand. They don't pick on me. They took one question, and it wasn't even a question, and I'm pissed off. At this point, I'm like, man, you know, this is a waste of my time. I wanted to ask him a few questions. Why did I even show up to this? So I grab a little bit of sushi because I had to get something out of it. And then they say they're doing a meet and greet selfie. I said, all right, I don't want a selfie with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I could care less. There's plenty of people I want selfies with. Not top of my list is not Robert F. Kennedy Jr., but the only reason why I went in line is because I wanted my moment to talk with him. And I took that opportunity. Now, what I wanted to do was I wanted to record our conversation, but they wouldn't let me do it because one of his stupid handlers took the phone right out of my hand and was taking a picture of us. I didn't want her to do that. I didn't want a picture. I just wanted to record our conversation. So anyway, I shake his hand and I say, Mr. Kennedy, can I ask you a few questions? And while I'm posing for the picture, he's like, sure, go ahead. And I said, what would you say to all the Somalians out there who lost their lives, almost 100 of them, many of them children, to measles? Will you take any responsibility for the vaccination misinformation that you spouted? He looks at me and he says, you're full of blank. He's visibly angry. And then his response to me is, they died from the vaccinations. Now, I know that that is a lie. How do we know that that is a lie? Because a plethora of the family members who lost loved ones said that their children were not vaccinated. Not every single person that died was unvaccinated, but many of them were. So he lied to me. He lied to my face, and he didn't want to be challenged. And then I have another moment, and people are behind me. They're waiting to get a picture with him. And I ask him a second question. I can see he's visibly angry at me. He doesn't like to be challenged. And I was respectful, by the way. I wasn't calling him names. I didn't say he was full of crap. And my second question to him was, if you think the vaccinations are poisonous, and you think they're so bad, then why did you give them to your kids? I think that's a very reasonable question. And he looks at me and he goes, well, they were forced to get the vaccination. I said, how were they forced? He says, well, because they couldn't go to school. And I'm thinking in my head, you have kids that I would imagine you care about. I would imagine Robert F. Kennedy is a responsible father, and I would imagine he cares about his kids, right? Would you allow your kids to take quote unquote poison, or would you just homeschool them? If I thought, for example, fentanyl, poison, right? Kills so many people. If I had kids and they were going to shoot themselves up with fentanyl and that's the only way they could do it, go to school, I would say, no, that's poison. You're not going to go to school. We'll homeschool you, or I'll take you to a private school where you don't have to take fentanyl. Same thing with vaccinations. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. talks about the vaccinations like they're fentanyl, like all these kids are dropping dead, which they're not, by the way. That's also a lie. So he gave me a BS answer. He gave me 2 BS answers, and he lied to my face. And that was the end of it. He wanted nothing more to do with me. Didn't want to be challenged on anything. So after I have that interaction or lack thereof with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I dislike now more than ever, I spoke to his communications director. She knows who I am because we've been emailing each other back and forth. And this is even before she had no idea the interaction that I had with Mr. Kennedy. No idea. I say, hi, I'm Brian. How are you? And, oh, hi, how are you? And I said, is there any way I can get your phone number so that we can arrange an interview down the road? No, I don't give out my phone number. I believe her name is Stephanie. She's Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s communications director. I said, okay, no problem. Can we exchange emails so we can keep in touch? No, just keep doing what you're doing and we'll reach out to you. In other words, we're not going to talk to you. We're not going to reach out to you. We don't care about you. That's, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s people. That's my interaction with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I think he's a scumbag. I think he's a liar. He's a conspiracy theorist, and there's a reason why the Steve Bannons of the world and the Charlie Kirks of the world support this guy, because they supported Donald Trump, and chances are, if you support or supported Donald Trump, you're probably going to support Robert F. Kennedy Jr., because they're both conspiracy theorist opportunists. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has used his last name his entire life. What has he accomplished in his life? So that was my interaction with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. We'll take some phone calls, 702-221-7283, and again, that number, 702-221-7283 is the number to call. Let's go to Levi. Hello, Levi.
No, it's Nephi Kaliki.
Nephi. Okay, Nephi. Yes, what can I do for you?
Hey, I wanted to congratulate you on the show, brother. You're the #1 rated show amongst suicidal people.
Well, I don't think it's funny to make jokes about suicide, but if you'd like to have a serious conversation, I'm glad to do that with you, sir. But your jokes are not funny.
Well, I'm wondering when you're going to have a serious conversation. Is there anyone you don't hate?
Is there anybody? Sure. I can name you thousands and thousands of people. I have a lot of friends in
Other
this town.
than yourself. Other than yourself.
Sure. That's not a serious question. I have a lot of great friends in this town, and I'm very lucky.
It is a serious question because
okay.
your show
No,
is
it's
so
not.
negative,
No, it's not.
And
it's
I
not.
accidentally,
okay, sir.
I accidentally fell on your. Don't call me sir.
Okay. Well, please don't fall on me because you're about 4 times my weight. So please don't do that, Nephi.
Your mother's 4 times my weight.
Thank you, Nephi. Thank you for having a very. Don't hang up on him. Don't hang up on him. Don't hang up on him.
Okay,
so, Nephi, here's the deal, right? You started this conversation saying some
congratulating
really, okay,
you.
pot him down. Nephi, I'm happy to have a conversation with you about a serious topic. But if you're going to call into a show, because I know you're a wannabe radio guy, pot him down. I don't want to hear his voice. Pot him down. You're a wannabe radio guy who's never been paid to do a radio show. Never. You've never been a radio guy. You're a wannabe comic. You're not funny. You've never had a paid gig making people laugh. You teach people how to shoot guns, and you're a moron. So if you'd like to have a real conversation with me about a serious topic, I'm happy, sir, to do that with you. But when you just call in and say, people that listen to your show, they're suicidal, which, by the way, is not funny and it's stupid. And then when you say, do you have any real friends? You're acting like a 10-year-old because that's who you are. So if you want to call back into this show and start from square one, and excuse me, I'm still talking. It's my show. If you want to call back another time and have a legitimate conversation, like maybe about gun control or about healthcare or even how much you hate Joe Biden, I'm happy to do that with you. But if you're going to act like a stupid 10-year-old and call into a radio show and say, people that listen to your show are suicidal. You know what? I made calls like that when I was 8 years old, Nephi. So how about you call back another time if you'd like to have a serious conversation, all right? And I'll what do you think about that, Nephi?
Pick a topic.
Pick a topic? Well, sir, I have topics on the
Don't
show.
call me sir.
Okay, I'll call you whatever the hell I want. Have a nice day, Nephi. Okay, have a nice day, brother. See, we do a radio show here, and I've already talked about topics. Nephi doesn't understand how radio works, so let me explain it to Nephi. You see, a radio host or producer picks topics. The topics today in the first hour were not about Nephi, okay? The topics today in the first hour were Kyle Rittenhouse's new book that's coming out. Liz Cheney get into a spat with Mike Lee. I know you probably don't think January 6th was a big deal, but most Americans do. That was another topic on the show. And then I had Doug Roberts on the show talking about F1 and about how some people were being mistreated. So those are 3 topics that I brought up in the first hour, and you could have talked about any single one of them, but you decided to call into this show
You can place a bet at their full-service sports book or start your day with a breakfast plate that comes with your choice of potato and toast. Or check us out for lunch or dinner and try one of our many sandwiches like the popular beer-battered fish sandwich or the Philly cheesesteak. Check out the full menu at KlondikeSunset.com.
The world-famous radio shopping show weekday on 1400 KSHP North Las Vegas and KSHP.com.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Shapiro from Pushing the Limits here. I want to tell you guys about my good friends at the Postal Annex. They have a notary signing agent on-site daily, no appointment needed, and they offer a full scale of printing services from shipping labels to documents, business cards, banners, photos, and business signage. They're your passport service headquarters. They offer passport photos, and they can renew your adult passports. If you're traveling in a hurry, they can get those passports to you within 7 days or less. Mailbox rentals with a physical street address, and they also receive your packages from Amazon, UPS, FedEx, USPS, and more. Here's the best part. If you're a Pushing the Limits listener, they have an introductory rate of only $39 for a 3-month service. You can't beat it. Give them a call, 702-873-8005. Check them out at 6130 West Flamingo Road. It's the Postal Annex, and tell them I sent you.
Buying or selling a home is a huge life event that requires guidance from an expert in the industry and community. My name is Blake Winn. You may recognize my name as my grandfather was the best governor the state of Nevada has ever had. Growing up in Las Vegas, I've come to know this community intricately. Now, I am raising a family here as well, so I understand all the issues impacting our home and quality of life. As the top realtor for the #1 real estate team at Keller Williams, you can have confidence in my experience, knowledge, and track record. When it comes to buying, selling, or investing in real estate, choose a name you can trust and someone who understands the community you call home. Call Blake Winn today and experience the difference of a trusted expert. 702-540-3311.
Hey everybody, are you struggling to find a pizza place that reminds you of Brooklyn? That true blue New York style pie? Well, worry no more. Stallone's Italian Eatery Pizza is a knockout. We're located at 467 East Silverado Ranch Boulevard, just off of Premier Road, half a mile east of South Point Casino, just minutes from the Las Vegas Strip. Come by and grab a slice of pie. Plus, check out our Brooklyn-inspired Italian cuisine. Our sandwiches are super. Hero, that is. Because why be a sub when you can be a hero? Stallone's Italian Eatery is here to serve you phenomenal food, Vegas. Forget about it.
Is your dog suffering from a sensitive stomach? Hi, it's Kelly the Cookie Lady from Mooch's Munchies. Our dogs had super sensitive tummies, and I needed to find a low-fat treat that wouldn't give them gas or other issues. Most of the treats on the market were loaded with fillers, chemicals, and chicken fat. Many of them weren't even food. Well, I knew I could do better, so I developed Mooch's Munchies, and I'm happy to be able to share them with you. Stop by our store or our website, moochesmunchies.com, and find out why we say that Mooch's Munchies are totally pawsome.
Welcome to Hash House A Go-Go, where we've been serving farm food and crafted cocktails for over 2 decades. Visit us for the full Hash House experience at any of our 5 Las Vegas locations. Hash House A Go-Go is where old school meets new and gets twisted. We bring people together over good food and fun. Come in for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and come hungry because our portions are huge. Visit us online to see our entire menu at hashhouseagogo.com. Hash House A Go-Go. It's a Midwest thing, and there's nothing else like it.
All right, welcome back. Pushing the Limits on a Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to tell you guys about my good friend Blake Winn from the Keller Williams Group. If you're thinking of buying or selling a home, no better person than Blake. His grandfather, the former great governor, Kenny Gwinn. And Blake's lived here his entire life, so he knows this city inside and out. He really helped my family making a decision on buying a home, and he'll help yours. Give him a call. 702-540-3311 is his number. I'll give that out one more time. Before I do, here's the best part. If you do use Blake, you get $1,000 cash back on your purchase. 702-540-3311. Blake Winn, Keller Williams Group, tell him I sent you. It is Monday, and that means it's Winn time. The man, the myth, the legend, the fade handicapper, the lavishly good-looking Chris Winn joining us in studio on a Monday. What's up, Chris? How's it going, man?
It's going good, Shap. Good to see you again. Yeah, it was another weekend in Vegas, right, my friend? Except it was a little bit of a different twist.
Yes.
You got the open wheels flying around the strip. You had, a very large European presence.
Oh, yeah.
On the strip, my friend, as well, too. But comments, everybody has their comments, takes regarding F1 and the impact and their thoughts as far as, whether or not it's a good or a bad thing for Vegas. It interesting, to say the least, to see what went down this weekend.
You're in the service industry. I guess the Winn broke a record for tips. Dealers made in excess of $700,000 on Saturday in tips. Each dealer walked away with a minimum of $2,000 in tips each, which is pretty darn cool. A lot of money in town, and we just had Doug in to talk about that. I do want to start with college basketball, if I may. Of course, UNLV in action today.
Yeah.
And I saw last night one of the best in-person college basketball games I've ever seen. Two good teams. Two teams that I can see making it to the NCAA tournament, even though UW is in a very difficult conference. They got a pretty good team, and they got a lot of good players. It's funny because I covered UW for a year when I lived in Seattle, and that's when they had Quincy Pondexter and Isaiah Thomas. So I'm sitting in the first game, and St. Mary's lost both games, by the way. They lost to Xavier again yesterday. I'm sitting, and there's a couple UW scouts to my right. So I go up, and I don't know who they are, but I'm just saying, hey, I used to live in Seattle. I used to cover you guys when they had Quincy Pondexter and Isaiah Thomas back in the day. And he looks at me and he goes, I am Quincy Pondexter.
That's great. Oh, it's so great. And to give the listeners a little background, you're talking about the Continental Tire Classic that went down here in Vegas this weekend. I talked about F1, but of course there was two games on Friday.
Yep.
I believe, did you go to the games on Friday?
I did.
And then, of course, they had two matchups. They had the consolation game yesterday, 4:30 local time, and then they had a game at 7 o'clock. The game that you're going to be talking about, of course, which is the Washington San Diego State game. That was interesting day, right, yesterday, Brian, because you had, of course, all the NFL action going on yesterday, and now we're in the midst of the NBA season, so there's NBA action going on during the day.
Couple weeks.
But what was classic is that, so you had all this great football action, then you had the Minnesota-Denver game, which ended up being like a really good football game, even though the two teams aren't necessarily going to be big factors when it comes to the postseason. But that's neither here nor there. But the entire night, Brian Shapiro and Numchuck and PTL Nation out there is capped off by a nationally televised tilt on ESPN2 from T-Mobile Arena that Brian Shapiro and a handful of his closest friends were in attendance at, between Washington and San Diego State, which ended up being a classic.
Not a good weekend. Not a good weekend for Randy Bennett.
No.
He lost both the games over there at St. Mary's, a team that a lot of people thought should be top 25. Xavier knocked him off yesterday. UW knocked him off earlier. So going into the game, I said San Diego State should probably win. They're preseason pick number 1, rightfully so, in the Mountain West Conference. Dutch is a great coach. He's really, really done a great job with this team, and what a run they had last year. And they've got some really talented NBA-type big-body players that can shoot. Good guard play. And UW's really good also. So San Diego State, Chris, was up 12 points with 2 minutes to go. 12, okay? And to UW's credit, they fought back. They got a couple turnovers. They hit some threes. And they also got a lot of help from San Diego State because they missed some free throws down the stretch. And they end up tying the game. It was weird how they tied the game, though. Game's nationally televised. I believe it was on ESPN2, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the UW players has the ball down 1 with 1 second to go, and the refs called a foul, which is, by the way, it was the right call.
Yeah.
But they called a foul. Very rare. So UW had a chance to win with both those free throws. Kid makes one of them. And it was fun to watch. It was a great game. San Diego State ended up winning by 3, and I think the final score was 100-97, a lot of offense. It was a great college basketball game. Two good teams. Yeah. It's just fun to watch, and all due respect to UNLV, but when you go to a UNLV basketball game this year, you go to a game like this last night, it's just at a different level. These are two really, really good teams that are probably going to be in the NCAA tournament. And it was just a really entertaining. I'm telling you, if it was packed, which it wasn't a great crowd. But if that place was packed, it would have been so loud because it was such an entertaining, exciting game.
Oh, no question about it. And look, I would concur with you as far as the excitement of that game. Now, look, I would also push back a little bit. Washington should have won the game. I mean, the kids at the free throw line with a chance to win the game, and the first free throw never even had a chance.
Well,
so, you get in a position like that where you're one free throw away from winning the game. You should probably close that out. But that being said, you got to overtime, and then there's a little bit of back and forth in overtime. Mm-hmm. Washington takes that 4-point lead early in the overtime, and then of course, as we all saw, San Diego State ends up winning the game.
Fun game.
Local connection too. That was kind of cool. You had Moses Wood was in the game.
Yeah, he's gotten a lot better.
He's got a history, obviously, here at UNLV.
Sure.
Locally, he was coached
good.
under TJ.
Yep.
Went on to Portland State, where he actually had a good career at Portland State, and then transferred. He's one of these kids these days. These kids, Brian. that are not afraid to transfer to like 3 schools in their college career.
I will say this
more.
about Moses Wood.
Yeah.
He's gotten a lot better.
Right.
Particularly his outside shot. But I think it's hurt his career by moving around.
Yes.
Because he's a talented player and he should be starting. But anyway, fun time yesterday at T-Mobile. I can't wait. Guess who's coming to town Thursday? Friday tournament. I know you're going to be going to this with me on Thanksgiving, right?
I'll be there.
Thanksgiving?
Yes.
Bobby Hurley, baby. Arizona State. I can't wait. And they're playing BYU on Thursday at Michelob Ultra Arena. That's going to be fun.
Brian Shapiro, kid in a candy store, baby. When it comes to the college buckets,
I love it.
Vegas.
I love it. So that's going to be fun. All right, Winn, let's talk about some positives again. It's been nothing but positives when it comes to the UNLV football program, as I've said since day one. With Odom, he just does everything the right way. This is a good football team. But they had a challenge over the weekend, playing against arguably at least the best team in the Mountain West Conference in Air Force. And I know they've had some injuries, but they coming off of a really bad loss. You would have thought that Air Force maybe would have played with, better than they did. But again, give credit to UNLV, and they got the job done when they needed to. It was also nice to see UNLV's former quarterback now getting in there for a few plays as a receiver. I thought that was really interesting. But great performance again by this football team. They're a physical football team. I don't think Air Force was ready for it. And now UNLV is number 1 in the conference. I can't believe I'm saying this late in the year. It's unreal. They've never won 10 games in the history of the program. So this is really special. 9 games, we were trying to look that up. I think it's been like 40 years. So they're already in uncharted territory. But now you play an average San Jose State team. They're not bad. They just beat Fresno a few weeks ago, right? They're not terrible. But this would be really special, and we all get to watch it on Saturday. I assume you do if you're not working.
I will be. I'll be there. It's a noon kickoff on Saturday.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is going to be really special, Chris. And to put this in perspective, congratulations to this team. And I know they got a lot more business to take care of. They're going to be in a really good bowl game. And I'm going to tell you right now, I do believe they're going to win on Saturday. And make me a case for another coach in Division I college football that deserves the National Coach of the Year other than Coach Odom. Make the case for me, because this guy has to be in that conversation. He has to.
There's no question about it. Look, we've kind of reiterated this and talked about this over and over again when I'm on Mondays, and I'm sure you talked about it throughout the rest of the week. This is quite frankly, and you can use all the adjectives, use all the descriptions, everything you want to say. It's just an unbelievable, kind of remarkable turnaround with respect to a college football program in modern history. It really, quite frankly, is. I mean, this is a program that was in the dumps without question. They had zero relevance whatsoever. It was a question as far as its identity as a program, where they were going, what they were doing. They were just shuffling in coach after coach after coach,
right?
And it has not been working for multiple decades. That was the position that UNLV football is in. The position they are in now is, and you talked about it and you mentioned it, saying how you can't believe you're saying this. I can't believe what's happening before our eyes right now. This team, without question, obviously controls its own destiny, but it would take basically a minor miracle for them not to be in the Mountain West Championship game, right? Because of the teams that they've beaten that are at the top of this conference. But I fully expect them to kind of close out the season in style on Saturday. I think they do beat San Jose State.
It's not bad. They're not bad.
No, I get it. I get that. It's fine. That's fine. But a quick note regarding that game against Air Force. Look, it seems like every week we get kind of nice surprises, is the way I'll describe it, when it comes to UNLV. Mm-hmm. And it was to me, it was the great production of Jaden Maeva in that game. I mean, he hit over 300 yards passing, multiple.
He was great.
He was a monster factor in this football game.
He's a freshman,
and the kid he's a
kid.
I mean, he's a
kid. Freshman.
We do not expect him. We didn't expect him. Look, the storyline on him was that, okay, you're coming in as a freshman, just kind of hold down the fort, right? We don't expect you to be Doug Brumfeld. We don't expect you to be out there slinging it around,
right?
Or be, even turning into a dual threat. But your main part of your duel being your running attack and your ability to take off with the football.
Yeah,
this kid's been much more than that. I mean,
Chris,
it's been extraordinary how big of and he's already a leader on this team.
Sure. I agree.
I don't have enough good things to say about Jaden Maeva
Chris,
as far as a quarterback. Right. And he's been a big part of it. And we could talk about Barry Odom, which we have, and I would absolutely. By the way, I'd agree with you. I think it'd be kind of ridiculous if Barry Odom is not the National Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
And now that leads to a bunch of other discussions, right, Brian?
We'll get
that
into
are great
that.
for radio.
We're running short on
as
time,
far
but
as what he can do.
I
But,
do want to talk about that with you, but just to go back to what you just said, which I agree with about Doug Brumfeld.
Yeah.
And I'm going to make this comparison to college in a sense that sometimes you need a little bit of luck. Doug Brumfeld, good quarterback, nice kid. But if you remember back in the day, I was watching this game when Drew Bledsoe got hurt. And all of a sudden...
Well, we all were watching that game, yeah.
Well,
I know where you're going here.
And all of a sudden, Tom Brady took over, and nobody knew who he was. He was not a lot of fans, even Patriot fans, knew a lot about him. And it changed the Patriots, it changed the league, it changed Tom Brady. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady's going to go down as the best quarterback of all time. Now, I'm not saying this kid...
Well, I can see the comparison.
Yeah,
I understand.
I'm not saying that this kid is going to win the Heisman, okay?
No.
But what I am saying is, and listen, Odom's a really good head coach. This team would still be bowl eligible, in my opinion. But what would have happened if Doug Brumfeld didn't get hurt? You could make the argument maybe they're still where they're at. I don't know. All I'm saying is sometimes you need a little bit of luck, but the majority of this and why UNLV is where they're at is because the players are executing. The game plan is very, very good. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about, Chris. You've been to the game.
I mean, there's no question what you're saying is true. I mean, look, there's other aspects too. The running game's been spectacular all season long.
Sure.
I get that, but I mean, ifs and buts, candies and nuts.
Yeah,
if Doug Brumfeld, I would absolutely make the case. No, they would not be where
Probably
they were.
Not. But let me
if
just
Doug
make
Brumfeld was a quarterback. So
right.
I don't know.
Let me just make.
I don't
one
know
more
what direction you're going there, but
let me just make one more point. No, I'm just saying sometimes you need a little bit of luck. But I remember going back to the Arroyo days, and every game I'd pick like 10 or 12 moments in a game where I'm like, what are they doing? What are they calling? What are you doing?
Yeah.
And when I watch these games, very rarely do I ever say, boy, that was a bad play call. Boy, that was blown coverage. It seems like this year, once in a blue moon, you're not going to be perfect, but I feel like the game plan going into week by week is superior. It's A+. And sometimes they run the ball a little bit more. That's what I love about their offense. They mix it up, man. And Odom is a defensive-minded coach, and you can see it because I think this is the most physical team they've had since I've been here in 20 years. But I actually want to give praise to a point where maybe a lot of people didn't think that Odom would succeed in, and that's the offense. I mean, to their credit, they have great receivers, great play calling. They run the ball well.
You're using exemplary language when you're saying great. I mean, look, Ricky White has been really good at the wide receiver position. They don't have a plethora of great receivers. Look, Brian, let's put our cards.
Jesus has been
Brian, time
unbelievable.
out. Let's put our cards on the table here. All right, there's an aspect to this team this year. All right, and this is going to sound like I'm criticizing them, but I'm not. I'm really not criticizing them.
Lower your
There
voice.
is a lightning in the bottle aspect to this team this year. All right, because it's improbable that you would have a coach and a coaching staff come in and be able to use, and this is a bad word to use, but transform the program this quickly, right? In one season, you're going to turn things around. But you have to ask the question, why? Why is this taking place, right? And without question, you have to give Barry Odom and his coaching staff a lot of credit. Now, you use the word great, and there's times where you kind of get over the top of things a little bit, and you'll say, oh, this person's great, or this person's great, or this person's great. All right, so Barry Odom, it's his first season here. Okay, so when I say lightning in a bottle, that's what I'm referring to. It's 1 year in which they've been extraordinary as a team, unreal. All right, if you want a good word to use is chemistry, right? When you're talking about coaching staffs blending with team personnel and having the kind of season that UNLV is having right now, it's unbelievable, But it is just 1 year, right? It's just a matter of what? We're in the midst of basically 9 games, a 9-game stretch where they've been outstanding, right? And where they've been a team that's overachieved. So maybe it's a kind of a take a step backness that I'm doing right now and trying to make sense of this, trying to observe it. But make no mistake about it. It's not just Barry Odom. It's not just the coaching staff. There's the running game, the rushing attack, which obviously is a huge aspect of the offense, has been outstanding this year. We just talked about Jade Maeva and what he's been able to do, step in there and play like a kid that's been there for 4 or 5 years, right? And then, of course, the receiving corps, as far as and led by Ricky White Jr. have been big time. So it's been the collective, and defensively, yes, you're right. Defensively, and Barry Odom's a defensive guy. That's what he does. That's his thing, right? So that's what he's done. That's what he did in the SEC as a coach, But again, what I'm trying to get across to you, and I guess what is my point of this entire last 3-minute rant, is that Barry Odom, before he got here, there was not some consensus that he was some great coach. Okay, that was not his resume at all. He was a guy that at times had gone through adversity as a coach, and wasn't necessarily the word that you used, which was great. So it has been there is an element of lightning a bottle when it comes to UNLV football and especially as we move forward here.
That was quite the rant.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
That was quite the rant.
But make no mistake.
He's not done yet.
They control their own destiny, and look, and you talk about this, and this is good radio when you bring up other people covering this team in the media, right, in Vegas.
Let me talk about that.
And so, we can talk about it.
Can I just talk for a minute?
So I'll bring it up. So Caleb Herring, former quarterback, right?
Yes.
Who, you guys have had back and forth occasionally on social media, and he's obviously a former UNLV football player, right? And he talked about the game coming up this weekend with San Jose State. He's like, hey, let's get 60,000.
Okay, well,
he's at the stadium on Saturday.
He's an idiot.
The thought process being, this
he's a moron.
You want to go and witness this because it's one of the craziest things that's ever happened when it comes to not just UNLV football.
This is like a 6-minute rant.
So yeah,
that was the longest Chris Winn rant ever. Okay, let me just respond to what you said.
So
I don't need the music. I'm okay. So this isn't a personal attack. It's a professional attack. You mentioned Caleb Herring, and there are other members of the media that cover UNLV. And I have the tweets as evidence. In Arroyo's last year, they said on the record, including Caleb Herring, that, quote, Arroyo was doing a good job. So when someone says they're doing it, which, by the way, they weren't, it's an absurd statement then and it's an absurd statement now, that alludes you to believe that if they had it their way at that time, Arroyo would return for another year.
Right.
I guarantee you 100% Arroyo probably wouldn't even made a bowl game, let alone where Coach Odom is at. Caleb Herring was dead wrong. Now, he criticized people like me who said Arroyo needs to go. He needs to go. He's not getting it done. He's a terrible head coach, which I think everybody would agree with now, and he needs to go. And people like Caleb Herring, give the coach more time. You got to give a coach 5 or 6 years. Well, you're the one who has egg on your face because you were 100% wrong about that moron, Coach Arroyo. And you were 100% wrong about how much time you need to give a coach. Odom is the poster child for you don't need 6 years to turn a program around. He did it in the first year. But people like Caleb Herring, who likes to hear himself talk after every play, doesn't even let the play-by-play guy talk, who's really good at his job, likes to hear himself talk and will never admit that he was wrong.
Okay, so time out. Let me jump in real quick. Okay, so we need to preface this, all right? And I understand you're going on, you're told I told you so.
He doesn't let me go on a rant.
You're going on your I told you so kind of angle here. And that's fine, right? But we need to preface this conversation by when you're talking about Caleb, right? And you're talking about either if it's Russ or if it's anybody that happens to be over there at Lotus, right? Working there. We need to point out to the listeners, right? And you're aware of this, Brian, but you're as far as this rant, you're not acknowledging it.
No, I do.
These people work for the flagship of the.
Let me respond to that.
But Brian,
let me respond to that.
Yeah, we got to take a break.
So
here's the deal. No, I'll be quick. You do have to acknowledge that, okay? So that is a pretense, okay, to a lot of the takes for people like Caleb is that they work for the station that covers the team.
Let me pot it down again.
Yeah.
Let me explain to Chris why I'm saying I'm saying. Hold on. Let me talk.
It doesn't disqualify what I just said.
Let me explain.
You don't need to explain anything.
Okay. Let me talk. Let me explain. There is a host at Lotus Broadcasting after the basketball loss to Southern, which was an embarrassment.
Yes.
Who went on the air and said positives to take away from this game and actually listed some positives. Just because you work for the flagship of a team that you cover, in this case UNLV basketball,
right,
or football, doesn't mean that you can't be honest with people and say, yeah, Coach Arroyo isn't getting it done. You don't have to wish for a coach to be fired, but you can criticize the product.
I'm not saying you can't.
And what I am trying to say, hold on, I'm almost done. What I am trying to say is there is a way to be critical and be complimentary. I have been nothing but complimentary about the UNLV football team. Why? Because they deserve it. I have been very negative about the UNLV football team, particularly in the Royal years, because he was a lousy head coach and the product stunk.
Well, it was just the Royal years. It was every other year too.
In my opinion, as a listener now, because I do listen to the radio, I want to hear somebody that's honest, not biased. Now, I get it. Caleb played for UNLV. He's going to be biased. I get that. All right. So Tommy Heinsohn, who does Celtic games, right? I think he still is. During the game, when a ref makes a even close to questionable call, Tommy Heinsohn will be all over the official. Like, okay, that's biased. I can deal with that bias in the middle of the game.
Well, that's homerism, yes.
I can deal with Caleb being a homer. But when you say that, quote, Coach Arroyo is doing a good job when they stunk and he's had years, that is absurd. And to use the excuse that, well, he's on the flagship station, so he's just going to brown nose every coach here. You lose credibility when you do that. You can do it in a nice, respectful way. Caleb was wrong then, and he's wrong now. And I don't want to hear Caleb, let's get 60,000 in the arena. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. They can't even get 20,000 in there. It's ridiculous. How about let's fill the lower bowl? That's achievable. Let's fill the lower bowl. But, it's kind of like the Desiree Reed-Francois, the Joker days, when Desiree Reed-Francois, the Joker, said, let's give kids free tacos. No, let's get a winning product on the basketball court. That's what Eric Harper has done.
I like free tacos.
That's what Eric Harper has done. Yeah. And Caleb Herring, listen, he's a nice guy. He's done my show before. I don't have anything personal against the guy, okay? I do have some things personally against some people in this town. Not Caleb. I think he's a really nice guy, a good dad.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Yeah.
It's not personal. I'm talking about professional, okay? Be honest. Don't go on the air when a team sucks and Odom's won more games in 1 year than Royal would probably win in 10 years. Don't do that. It's wrong, and you lose credibility. We can be honest. Don't take positives away from a UNLV basketball loss when they lose to Southern and say, well, we got some positives here. No, you're an idiot. Stop doing that. You're an idiot. You have no credibility. These people that, if they had their way, Dave Rice would still be the head coach here. Marvin Menzies would still be the head. They've never said on the air once, yeah, they should probably let blah, blah, blah go, because they're all cowards. That's why. And if that's the kind of radio that people want to listen to, fine, so be it. But I don't want to listen to radio like that. I want to listen to people that are honest. And there are some people in this town that are honest. And the guy we have with us on the line right now is a perfect example of that, Chris. So that was my rant. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, I mean, agree or disagree. Everyone's got their viewpoint, which is
me?
fine.
Do you disagree?
No, I agree. I agree in spirit with most of what you said. Yes. I think, there isn't, but the reason why I jumped in and it was like, hey, because there was an element of I told you so that you were, as far as the line of discussion that you were going down when it came to when you start bringing up Marcus Arroyo and you say things like, well, I knew that Marcus Arroyo was a terrible coach, and I knew that it was great, that it was the best move ever to get rid of him. We're not just talking about Marcus Arroyo. And by the way, Gully could probably weigh in on this when it comes to UNLV football. Yeah. But here's the deal. Wasn't just Marcus Arroyo. This is a program that has been wallowing in terribleness for decades.
Yes,
okay, so
I get it.
So,
and by the way, Caleb,
that was my entire point.
Caleb Herring said that my opinion didn't matter, and he said I wasn't at practice, so I don't have credibility. This is the same guy who thought Coach Arroyo was doing a good job before he was fired. So I'll leave it at that and let people make their own decisions. There's people in this town that have credibility, and then there's people in this town that don't. And I think when
it's a nuanced discussion. Yes. You're talking about someone who was a former player for the team, for the program. Yes, that person, Brian, I'm sorry, you didn't play college football. You're not necessarily, I mean, college football is not necessarily your, one of your main things when it comes to sports. So yes, people are going to listen to someone like Caleb Herring before they listen to someone like you. It's just a fact. I don't know. I mean,
I will say
I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but that's just the way it is.
Well, it doesn't matter. The proof is in the pudding. He's wrong and I'm right. But I will say this. Though. People, your betting record in college football isn't something to be desired either. So I just want to be fair here.
We're turning this on me. Now turn it back on me.
Let's get to our guest. All right, enough. Let's get to our guest. Scott Gully Gulbrenson doesn't want to hear us bicker and argue with each other talking about
Gully probably loves this stuff.
Yeah, he is the co-creator of the Silver and Black Today podcast. Does such a great job covering Raiders football. Gully, what's happening, my man? How you doing?
Wow, I jump in and suddenly I'm in the middle of this discussion, and it's always good. I love coming on. Usually I come on a little early so I can listen to what you guys are talking about. But yeah, UNLV sitting at 9-2. Hard to argue with what Barry Odom has done. But yeah, we live in an interesting time though, that I think that sports commentators and whatnot are a different ilk these days. And Caleb, good young man. He works for UNLV, right? So of course you're not going to say that. Now, whether he criticizes people, listen, the broadcast industry has been completely taken over by former athletes, and they offer a great and unique perspective that I can't understand because I never played college football, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think too that you see this even coverage of the NFL, which I think that they are so close to it that you are losing objectivity. Now, I would imagine, or I would argue that the American public overall, and for an old tooth like me, it's disturbing, but for young people, it's not. And that is, they don't necessarily want objectivity anymore. Now, we like it, we want it. I do my show that way, but at the same time, it's not the standard anymore. And so when you hear people that work for teams, or an NFL commentator who was a former quarterback or wide receiver, whatever they played, they're not going to go to the same level of criticism that some of us would, because they know these guys. They're a brotherhood, and that's fine.
But as long as you, can I
go ahead
into what you just said?
Sure.
I'm not saying that I expect a Caleb Herring to give the same criticism as somebody like you.
No,
that's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, give me some criticism. When you make a statement like Coach Arroyo is doing a good job, which is what he said on social media to me, when there was no evidence to prove that. I mean, his record was terrible. And when you say you don't have to say, I wish the guy gets fired, he's a terrible coach. Just say, listen, right now he's got to get it. He's not getting it done. Got to improve. You don't even have to call for his firing, but you don't have to lie to people, right? Like when you say, let's get 60,000 people in Allegiant Stadium for the game on Saturday, it's absurd. It's absurd. They don't even sell tickets in the upper bowl. Is he not aware of that? Like, I don't know. I just think I agree with you. We don't expect the same criticism from a guy like Caleb, from somebody else who's not working for UNLV. And I agree with you there, but you have to be able to give some level of criticism. And there's people in Las Vegas that are not willing to do that with UNLV basketball. And they certainly have not been willing to do that in UNLV football. So I don't want to hear them today talking about how great UNLV is. They have no credibility. That's all.
Yeah. Well, there's also, right, Gull, I think you'd agree with this too, Brian. There's also degrees of credibility. Okay. When we get into back and forth, you and I, right? And by the way, Gull, I did toss out this nugget here that got Brian all fired up and got him rolling on this whole topic, right? But
he did.
This isn't an absolute thing, Brian. Okay. Because you're using terms like this person has no credibility. Okay. There are absolutely degrees to credibility, especially to the point that Gully made, that we are in a very interesting time now where you have what's called new media out there, right? Where you've got numerous podcasts, shows, whether it's radio, television, video, whatever, where people are absolutely giving their takes and their views.
I understand.
Whether it's on UNLV football, whether it's on the Raiders, who we're about to talk about, wherever, where it's tainted with a bias.
Let's talk
tainted
Raiders.
With a love or fandom of the team. That's kind of what the direction that Gully was going in.
I understand.
And so, the whole concept of having any credibility at all or no credibility, it's kind of a it's kind
Let
of a
me
fine
be
line.
clear, and then we can move on, because I want to talk Raiders football with Gully. I will say this, and then we can move on. Anybody today that says that Coach Arroyo did a good job when he was here has zero credibility.
It's a bad take.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bad take.
Anybody that makes that claim, and there are people on the air in this town that would make that claim, and those people have no credibility. Somebody who does have a credibility is the guy I want to talk Raiders football with. But go ahead, Gully.
Brian, just one thing to close it out on, because I think this is an important thing. And I think that people that are really close to a team, whether it's pro, whether it's college, is that what they often do, and I think it's not meant to be deceptive. And I'm not defending anybody because I don't know the whole story, but I'm just saying this, and that is they confuse a guy doing a good job with he's a good guy. Now, whether or not he's a good guy, I don't know. I didn't know him, so I can't tell you.
He wasn't. He's not.
But if that's the case, I can see you're close to the coach, right? So you say, hey, he's doing a good job. Well, really what you're saying is he's doing his best, which maybe not good enough in a results-oriented business.
Understood. Yep. Totally.
But
understand.
I go back to when I first started hosting Silver and Black Today. I grew up a Charger fan, and there were people who were like, I'm not listening to this guy. He grew up a Charger fan, and they still pop up from time to time. I'm like, look, I got 7 years of covering the Raiders. Tell me whenever, by the way, I abandoned the Chargers because they left San Diego. I was not a fan after that, but show me where I've ever covered the Raiders with the lens of being a Charger fan. And of course they go away and they never talk to me again because they can't. So I get it. And obviously an interesting discussion between you guys.
Yeah. And obviously, again, not to go back there, but Arroyo was not good with the media. He wasn't good with the fans. He didn't recruit locally. I can't think of one good thing that Arroyo did here when he was at Las Vegas. So
well, he resulted in Barry Odom coming in. So that's the one.
Odom's done the opposite. He's great with the media. He went to like 30 schools the first week he was hired here locally to recruit. He's great with the media. He's a modest guy. The players love to play.
No, but you missed it. You missed it, Shap. Gully was right. He's saying, hey, the good thing is that they ended up hiring Barry Odom. That was
no, you're right. You're right. But hey, Josh McDaniels, great head football coach of the Raiders. I'm sure Caleb would have that opinion as well. All right, Gully, let's talk a little Raiders football. Good football team in the Miami Dolphins, well coached. I think we all could agree on that. My big takeaway from the game is that defensively, they did what they needed to do to give them an opportunity to win a football game. I thought Max Crosby, a lot of guys on the other side of the ball did a good job. Your starting quarterback, Mr. O'Connell, did not have a very good football game yet. With that being said, they still had an opportunity to win. I know there's no moral victories here, but I thought they showed improvement. And I think if we rewind the tape a month ago, which we're not going to, but if we did, they're not in that football game. They were in that football game. So I think there are some positives to take away, and there's nothing embarrassing about their performance.
No, absolutely. I mean, look, I think it comes down to two words, and that's missed opportunities, right? So this team on the road against the Dolphins, who were coming off a bye, and let's face it, yeah, the Dolphins put up 422 yards. Tyreek Hill had his 145 yards, but they didn't play as well as they could have. So the Raiders had an opportunity to steal one on the road, and they couldn't get it done on offense. Now, part of that was the quarterback. A lot of it was, I think, game planning. A lot of it was Vic Fangio. People forget, when a team doesn't perform well on one side of the ball, they're very quick to look at the team and say, well, you didn't do this, the quarterback didn't do that, and all that. And those things may be true, absolutely. But Vic Fangio knows what he's doing. And Vic Fangio threw some looks at them. They talked about it in the post-game press conference that they had not seen before. It was a complete surprise. It was not on any of the tape. They had not run it all season long. So that's fine. But what they didn't do was then adjust to it. And so I think you have a rookie quarterback who has limitations. We knew that going in. Look, O'Connell does some really nice things, okay? But one thing he's not mobile. He doesn't have mobility. And I don't say mobile like a running quarterback, folks. I'm talking about just mobility in the pocket. It's the reason why instead of being a second-round pick, he was a fourth-round pick, okay? So knowing that, you understand that, look, you have to put him in the right position to win the game. And the only way you do that is by taking off some pressure. And with the Raiders, their identity is Josh Jacobs running the ball. Okay. Josh Jacobs didn't get a chance to run the ball. He had 11 carries.
Yep.
Okay. 27 the previous 2 weeks. They abandoned the run too early, and they just could not get anything going on offense. And it was very reminiscent of some of the Josh McDaniels days when they didn't get very creative on offense. I don't mean creative meaning going downfield 50 yards. I mean, using weapons over the middle to give your quarterback nice, small, short passes to complete and move the ball down the field. So all of that together is why they couldn't win that game, despite a great spirited effort by a defense that is playing up to its potential the most that it can with the talent it has.
Yeah, I go ahead, Chris.
So Gully, if you think about this, right? Offensively, and Brian brought him up, right? Aiden O'Connell, not exactly, an electrified performance. Look, we understand he had the Hail Mary, obviously Devontae in that first half, which is good from an offensive standpoint for him to have that. He ends up finishing just over 270, right? And a decent percentage. He did have the 3 picks though. But to me, that kind of leads to what was the story of this game, right, Gully? When you think about this Miami Dolphins team, everybody's been talking about the offense all year long. And make no mistake about it, right? Offensively, Tyreek Hill did his thing, 146, 10 catches, a couple spectacular plays that he made. Of course, Tua ends up with a couple of touchdown passes. He did have the pick as well, too. But the big key to this game, which was kind of ironic, right, Gully, was it was Miami's defense and Jalen Ramsey that ended up being kind of the main storyline. as to why Miami was able to get this victory against Vegas yesterday.
Absolutely. Remember, and this is what, I'm real active on x.com during the games with our listeners and with Raiders fans. And they were like, oh, what are we doing? We played these two tough defenses, especially the Jets last week. And now we're playing this trash defense. I'm like, trash defense? Yeah. Wait a minute. You got 2 all-pro cornerbacks, and then you got an all-pro on the inside. This is a good defense. Okay. So this is a defense that is top 12. Okay. Not top 10, but top 12. They're getting there, and they've gotten better all season long. And so you look at that and you say, okay, they went up against a good defense on the road, and they just couldn't get it done. And so you look at that and you understand that it's about matchups, and the Raiders ran into a tough team. So yes, they need to do things better on offense. I wrote a piece on Sports Not today that I think Antonio Pierce, if he wants the job full time, he's got to figure out the offense between now and the end of the season. I'm not saying he's going to solve all of it, because some of it's talent related, but he's got to figure something out to where you're scoring more than 16 points a game. If not, you could seemingly lose you might win 1 or 2 more games if you can't figure that out. You have to get the offense unrolling, and a lot of that is coaching. But then again, rookie head coach, rookie offensive coordinator, basically stepping in, was a quarterback's coach. So with that said, there's, as Brian said at the top, there's lots of positives to take away from this, but there's also glaring deficiencies that they're going to have to look at. And Champ Kelly, if he gets the job full time as a GM, is going to have to address in the draft and free agency.
Yeah. What do you think is going through Mark Davis's mind right now, Gully? I mean, do you think he has a number in his head? Do you think he's made a decision yet? Do you think, he already knows what he wants to see from this team by the end of the year? What do you think is going through his head right now?
It's a good question. I don't know. Listen, I think that everybody, when you see, and I've not spent time around him personally, but when you see Antonio Pierce, the clear, I think, leadership abilities, his character shines through. Okay. His character shines through. He's gotten this team galvanized to the point, coming off a bad situation, where I think everybody's rooting for him. Fans really want him to succeed. A lot of fans are like, give him the job already. It's like, well, no, it's a meritocracy. You have to earn it. So how do you earn it? I think you have to show that this team gets better all the way around. Whether that's going, when we started this, me and my broadcast partner, Mo Moten, we said we thought he had to go 6-3. We really did. If you're going to guarantee yourself the job, get the job go. Now, he's now 2-1. If he goes 2-6 or 2-5, or if he goes 3, if he only wins 3 or 4 games, out of the 9 that he's coaching, is that good enough? I don't think it is. But Mark Davis,
And I would also add that there are some rumblings on social media that Jim Harbaugh has been asked about this job, and he has shown interest. I don't know if that's true or not, but it wouldn't surprise me. And listen, big name. We all know what's taken place with Jim Harbaugh over the course of the last month. Not great. He probably wouldn't mind a change of setting. And what are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on Jim Harbaugh possibly maybe being the next head coach?
Well, outside of the fact that he cheats, but Al Davis said if you're not cheating, Al Davis said if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So if they have an opportunity and Jim Harbaugh wants to come to Las Vegas, I don't see how Mark Davis doesn't consider it. I mean, you have to, right? Yeah. And not only that, but again, it goes back to the thing you were talking about with UNLV. Like, everybody likes Antonio Pierce, but is he going to show enough? He's got an audition, right? He's got an audition. Brian, you get an audition to do a national radio show for a big outlet, and you go on and do it, and you nail it and earn it. Okay, great. You get the job. If you go on and you struggle a little bit, you had some good moments, some bad moments, you might not get the job, right? So we're all in those positions. So I think that you can root for a guy, you can like a guy, but is he going to be the man who leads you forward? I think it's too early to say. We have to see the way the rest of the season plays out.
I tend to agree.
And I want to chime in on that, Gully, because you talked about moving forward as far as the schedule and opportunities, the word that when it comes to Antonio Pierce. I'm telling you, Scott, Brian Shapiro, he's got to win those games against the likes of Minnesota, right? He's got to win that game. You got to win, how about coming up with a victory at home against the Chargers, right? How about that game in Indianapolis against the Colts? How about, how about the matchup, obviously, as far as maybe pulling off what would be considered an upset, a big upset, because they're already almost double-digit dogs before Kansas City has even played this week's game, and that's the matchup next week against Kansas City, right? So there's going to be chances for Antonio Pierce to do what Gully was talking about, as far as, in making a over the top positive impression on Mark Davis and the powers that be that will be making the decision as far as the next head coach.
Yeah, and I think that you look at the schedule and you just rattled off some of those. They have the Chiefs, and I said, I think, Brian, we talked about on this show last week that the Dolphins, it's going to be a tough game to go on the road and win that one. Okay, they almost did. But you had, to me, in my view, for this team to kind of go in a really positive direction, you had to take one of these two games, right?
Yeah.
So now you got to beat the Chiefs at home. Beating the Chiefs in general is tough. Their defense, you talk about a defense that's gotten a lot better. Okay. The Chiefs, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, is going to be dangerous. It's just the way it is. But their defense has gotten better too. So again, the spotlight's going to be on this Raider offense. They got to score points. And even Minnesota, I know they lost to Denver. Denver's surging, right? You could say all you want about Sean Payton. He still made some crazy decisions in that game, but still they won. But Minnesota, Josh Dobbs continues to perform pretty well, despite all the challenges they've had. But you're right. You look at that schedule past Kansas City, there's a lot of games there where if you can have your offense do what it should do, like it did against the Giants or the Jets even, and your defense plays at the same level, you should be in all those games. So I agree with you. I think you have to see something down the stretch that says this guy faced the challenges, the adversity, and he's overcome them, and he deserves more time.
I'm not sure anybody thought that when the Chiefs came to town, Garoppolo would be healthy and would be sitting on the sidelines and O'Connell would get the head start. I don't think many people predicted that. Looks like that's what we're going to have here. So we'll have to, is Garoppolo even going to play the rest of the year?
I don't think so.
Well, no, they already made the determination that Aiden O'Connell's the starting quarterback the rest of the season.
So we won't even see Garoppolo. Wow, it's something else. He's getting paid a lot
But
of money.
that'd be injury, right?
Yeah.
Injury
I guess that's it. Unbelievable. Wow.
Well,
or if Aiden O'Connell just plays out of this world horrifically, right, in like a 3-game stretch or something, and then maybe that triggers something. But that would even be, something that would be extraordinary, right, Gully, to think that.
Right, because if he wasn't a rookie in yesterday's game against Miami, where he clearly wasn't getting it done, you might have gone to your backup quarterback just for a change of pace, right? Because hey, it's just not working today. Let's go to somebody. But he's a rookie. You got to see what you have. You have to let him play through that adversity. It's not tanking, but it certainly is willing to accept a loss and not move away from your rookie quarterback, so you don't maybe ruin his confidence and get him down and have him questioning, and then he gets too careful, and then actually things get worse.
Right. Well, just it's going to be an interesting rest of the year to see how this all plays out. I tend to think that Pierce will not be the head coach next year, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. It's still very early. Gully, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. You do a great job, and looking forward to catching up with you again next week. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving holiday for you and your family.
Same to you guys. You guys both have a great Thanksgiving. And boy, Chris, man, those Lions had me worried there for a minute.
Another week, another victory. I'm
right.
going to start calling Gully. I'm going to start calling him Riverboat Dan Campbell, my friend.
Yeah.
I mean, the man, it's just unreal what's going on in Motown.
Jared Goff usually finds a way to disappoint. I'm sure in the next couple months he'll be disappointed. Hey, I don't want to rain on your parade. Gully, thanks for joining us, my man. Have a great week.
All right, Gully, have a good weekend.
You guys too. Take care now.
By the way, Chris, before we go, what do you? I did have a little brief interaction with Mr. Robert Kennedy Jr.
I did. I heard your commentary there.
Yeah.
By the way, I have one take on that.
Yes.
Okay, so you had a contentious exchange, obviously, with the former Democrat, now independent, right? Running for office. So I don't understand why you took a picture with the guy. Why would you take a picture with him?
I'll tell you why. Because the only
and you're
way...
like smiling. Nunchuck, he's like smiling on the picture. He's like he does a Shap thumbs up.
Did you listen to my story?
Okay, I listened to some. Yeah, okay. You're basically hammering him. Yeah.
So it was a quick selfie meet and greet, they called it. And as I was walking, because I wanted to video I didn't want to take a picture with him. I wanted to video our conversation.
Okay.
The lady, the handler, grabs the phone out of my hand, and then he's posing with me for a picture. And as we're posing, I'm talking to him. I'm like, do you mind if I ask you a few questions? He's like, go ahead and shoot, while we're kind of smiling. I'm like, okay, I'll go through the motions.
All right, so time out. Right there, it's already going sideways. Okay, so it's a meet and greet, right? So it's not you're a member of the media technically. You're a radio host, right? So it's not an interview with him. So you're like you're saying, can I ask you a few questions? That's like what media do. That's
Okay.
that's
So
like an interview.
Every person
Okay.
that went up there, they had a couple pleasantries. They asked them a question. Hey,
Yeah.
how can I support you?
Absolutely.
I'm one of those people, and I asked him a question, and he said yes. By the way, he said, "Yeah, go ahead, shoot." And I asked him about the Samoans that died. Do you take any responsibility? Because clearly he's responsible for some of those children that died, and the reason why is because he went out there,
No doubt.
and he spread conspiracy theories about vaccines, and many of those children who died were unvaccinated, and even the families say, "Yeah, Kennedy's rhetoric."
He has a lot of crackpot views when it comes
so
to that.
he lied to me, and he looked me in the eye, and he said, "You're full of crap." And I said, "How so?" And then he looked at me, and he said, "Quote, all those people who died were vaccinated." Now that's a lie. We know that that's a lie.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so that was the first lie, and and so he was frazzled.
I'm just talking about time and place.
Yeah.
It wasn't an interview. It was it was a meet and greet.
I wasn't trying to interview him. I was trying to
Okay.
just ask him one question, which, by the way, everybody was entitled to do. Hey, I've got a question for you. Do you think you're going to beat Trump? Blah, blah, blah. That was my question. And then the quick follow-up I asked was, if you think the vaccinations are
Yeah, but you're asking a follow-up.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what I'm saying.
people.
It's not a follow-up.
This
It's not
wasn't
an interview.
longer. This wasn't longer than a minute. It wasn't an interview. I wasn't recording it. I wish I could have, but I wasn't. And then I asked him. I said, if you think the vaccinations are so poisonous, then why did you allow your kids to take them? Because his kids took the Oh, because they had to go to school. And I'm thinking to myself, you could have just homeschooled them. I wouldn't give, if I had kids, I wouldn't give them poison if I thought it was poison. I would rather homeschool them. He didn't do that. You know why? Because he's full of crap. That's why he's a liar. He was pompous with me. And
Well, I would agree with that.
He's a
Yeah.
conspiracy theorist. So that's how it went down. And his media people are a bunch of morons too. So that's how it went down.
Well, I know that whole thing when you're talking about it, obviously at the bottom of the last hour, you're talking about how the communications person is like, wait, is not even exchanging emails. Like you're a radio host, you have a show. Like that, the purpose was you're trying to get him on your show, right? So you can banter and go back and forth with him.
Yeah.
And the communications director, what is the deal with some of these people that are working? There's so many people, Brian. This will be a mini rant before we go here. That work in the communications business that are communications
Can I
directors
give a
that
positive?
don't know how to be one.
All right,
They're
you know what?
terrible.
I'll give you a couple. Let's end on a positive.
Okay.
People that we both agree on.
Yes.
The good people in this
Jim
town.
Gemma.
Jim Gemma. Jiggy Maxwell. He's good at his job.
Yeah.
These
The
are-
VGK people good.
Yeah, the
you know.
VGK people are fine. I have no problem with them at all. The others, we'll leave that to the imagination. But anyway.
Good game tonight. Hey, Philadelphia rematch, Super Bowl 57, Brian Shapiro. Who you got?
Kristen invite
Eagles and Chiefs, bro.
Kristen invited me for his birthday party, and he didn't.
I didn't have a birthday party.
Happy birthday. Happy
Yeah.
65th. He didn't
I'm
invite me.
Old Man River.
He didn't invite me for his birthday party. He's not inviting me to a Monday night football party. I mean, I don't know.
I'm not having a party.
Oh, you're not having a party.
No.
Okay. Thought it was a
Good
party.
game, though, man.
Thought it
Who
was
do
a
you got?
party.
Who do you got, Shapiro? Okay, so who do you got?
What's the spread?
Rematch. I gotta believe Kansas City's probably a short favorite. I'm not
I
looking
take
at
the
it right
Eagles
now.
tonight. I take the Eagles.
Take the Eagles?
What
Okay.
are you taking? Quickly,
I'm
we gotta go.
Taking Kansas City.
All right, I like my pick even more.
At home.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.